Hey, Laoshi Laurince McElroy here for Water Tiger School of Taijiquan, doing another pre-recorded video. So some original content this week. We've been not doing it as often as we'd like to, but we're still getting it up there occasionally. So anyway, today's topic will be on Water Tiger School's approach to our what we normally refer to as just our beginning of class meditation, which we call a Qigong-Based meditation. So that's the meat of what we're doing. I want to point out, oops, rolled the wrong way. The chair in the background, you may want to grab a chair for our meditation, though it's usually presented as a standing meditation. We do suggest sometimes that people sit, and we'll explain that when we get to it. So anyway, meditation is an important component to everything that we do in our Tai Chi and our Qigong, and just that sort of taking that break, mindfulness. If you participate in any formal fitness programs like use a Fitbit, or I think it's Noom or anything like that, even Tony Horton from Tony Horton Fitness is putting a mindfulness component into the workout that he's currently developing. So mindfulness and just taking that breath, taking that little mini vacation is always important. And we use a Qigong-based meditation to kind of help us direct the focus of the mind while we're doing this. So as we presented in earlier videos, that basically any time that you're doing something where the mind is really focused on the task at hand and you're doing it, and everything becomes a meditation. That thing becomes a meditation because the rest of the world kind of quiets down in the background. By the way, by now, perhaps some of you have noticed the t-shirt I'm wearing. I in no means whatsoever mean to poke fun at those who have attention deficit disorder. I saw somebody wearing this t-shirt like ages and ages ago, like 15 years ago, and I thought it was great, and I bought it, and then I realized, yeah, probably really shouldn't wear that shirt. But it's perfect for today, right? Because this is what we refer to as monkey mind, as wild horse mind, as ricochet rabbit mind, where the mind is just bouncing here and there and there and there and there and there and there, right? Meditation helps us to sort of tame the wild monkey, to quiet the wild horse, and to sort of build some pads around the ricochet rabbit mind so it's not bouncing off the walls quite so much. So that's the idea. And so I think let's get into it. We are still doing our Monday live sessions on Facebook Live, and we're still posting one of those a week. Uploading them to our Facebook page. We're into May now. We began in the early days of home isolation with the live sessions all the way back in March 23rd, I believe, was our first day. So those are continuing. Our studio is open for in-person classes with plenty of COVID protocols, which have to be followed to allow folks to participate. Breaking the protocols, you won't be able to stay. So anyway, so there's that. Our basic beginning of class meditation is normally done in a standing position. So it's a Zhuang or standing post. My Chinese is awful. I don't know what I really said, but it translates as standing post. Feet are shoulder wide. Our basic structure. Where the drop of the shoulder is should split the heel on that side in half. Where the drop of this shoulder is should split that heel in half. Our knees are open. Our perineum is anchored toward the earth. So with the knees open, the perineum anchored toward the earth, creates a sitting down into the qua where the inner upper thigh comes into contact with the pelvic bowl. So puts the hips underneath the torso underneath the shoulders. So I'm not leaning back, not leaning forward. The chin from parallel, stay over here for a moment. Slight tuck down. Crown point of the head held, not lifted to the heavens, right? If I'm in mountain pose, beginning of yoga, I have this uprightness that I don't have in this position. Held, not lifted to the heavens. Now, the reason that we offer people the option to sit is that a standing meditation can tend to take whatever's not 100% with you and turn up the volume. So if you enter into a meditation and you're a little dehydrated, you didn't sleep well last night, your blood sugar is a little bit low, those kind of factors can all, and speaking of moisture, Laoshi grabs his tea bottle. Those kind of factors, plus things like you have a new prescription strength and your body's getting adjusted to that change, either up or down in strength, might want to sit down. If you're not sure, then what you do is you take the chair and you place it directly behind you, right? So I'm not going to put it here and stand all the way up here, because if I need it, I want to be able to simply sit down. I think this chair has seen better days. But it's right here. So if I start standing, and I'm doing my standing meditation, and, you know, things start to get a little bit wonky, then all I have to do is sit. And notice when I did that, my feet didn't move. I don't come in like this just because I'm in the chair, because now all of this is closed off. The quad is too tight. The thighs are too tight. So shoulder wide, regardless of standing or being seated. Notice not collapsing. Also, not lifting the crown point of the head, but it's still held. So my shoulders are still over my torso. My torso is still really over my hips. And here I am. Now there are, guided meditations that lead to relaxation will allow people as the meditation goes on to do this, but not in our Qigong-based meditation. It's to remain in this position. Now, if you do sit, we offer a couple of positions for the hands. There are a lot more. Either palm down on tops of the thighs. Be careful if you have an arm like a hard-backed dining room chair that has arms to it, right? Because that can prop up your elbows and raise your elbows. So you want a chair, if your hands are on your legs or knees, where your arm, this part of the arm, the upper arm, can just hang, right? Or the other position, and go back to facing front. Cupped in the lap. Now standing, we normally present, one position, more or less. I'm not going to need the chair. I'm just going to set it to the side there. And that's Lao Gong points, the centers of the palms, the temples of possibility, or work temples by some translations. Come to the center line. Lower abdominal cavity, some people are very specific about where this acupuncture point is for the Xia Dantian, the lower field of elixir. But, they'll say like 2 finger widths or 3 finger widths or a finger, 2.5 finger widths below the belly button. But, belly buttons are different for different body dynamics. I actually had somebody in a group one time tell me that she did not have a belly button, that she'd had abdominal surgery at one point, and it just was no longer there. So we had to figure out something else. But pretty much where the elbow folds and where it comes into contact then with the center line within your structure, that's about where it belongs. Again, you can do the Lao Gong point, the center of the palm aligned on the center line, the other hand, its center of palm aligned on the center line. Or the right hand can slide a little bit to the right of the center line, the left hand can slide a little bit to the left of the center line. I'm going to move up to the camera here. I'm going to lose my head for a moment and show you, not like this, but like this. Hand just resting there. Sort of like a rock climber. You know how a rock climber can, just the little tiniest bit of extension in a rock, they can hold their whole weight with like just a finger or something. That's sort of what this is. Maybe thumb is in the belly button a little bit. Maybe it's resting on the band of your trousers or belt loop or whatever. And then the weight of the other hand just rests into it. So I'm not tight is what the point that I'm seeking to make here, right? Just relaxed. Some people are very specific about which hand is next to the body for what kind of person. It's the Water Tiger School of perspective that whichever hand feels like it belongs next to your body at this time in this place is the one that belongs there. So, for instance, it's usually my right hand, but sometimes it just feels, oh, yeah, no, not today, but sometimes it just feels like, oh, it needs to be the left hand. But most of the time for me, it's the right. So, that's the basic position. I'm going to offer an option. If you've been in any of my public classes, the Water Tiger School public classes, you probably have not seen this option of embracing the moon. So notice a couple of things. My elbows are dropped. My fingers aren't touching, but they're pointing toward one another. Both are the same height. And there's a roundness there. I'm not out like this. I'm not in like this. It's like there's a big ball there. And my hands are right at chest level. I know with the angle of the camera, it makes it look, full from the front like I'm doing this. I'm not, I'm right here. So that's a secondary position. If you want to explore that, fine. Once you get into the meat of the meditation, if the hands feel like they want to rise, they rise. If you get into this and that starts to become a distraction, they float back down and return. Just like being seated in the two positions that we give you there are multiple positions in standing meditation. These are the two that we normally talk about at Water Tiger School. We do, though we don't in the public classes, we do in the studio classes, give people the option of going into the embrace the moon or embracing the tree position. So that's a secondary position you can move into if you want. Remember the chair if you want. The way in which this is a Qigong-based meditation is the image that we move into is what we refer to as an image breath. A breath that expands from the Xia Dantian, not the acupuncture point, but the actual Xia Dantian, the esoteric vessel that sets in the lower abdominal cavity on the line between the crown point of the head, between the Bakwei, the 100 convergences, and the Hu Yin, the bottom of the sea, the perineum, in the abdominal cavity. And that imaginary breath, that image breath, doesn't leave, right? It doesn't pack its bags and go out to your extremities, leaving your Xia Dantian empty. That would be a bad image to create. It remains as strong as ever in the Xia Dantian and opens like a flower to the extremities. And on the internal inhalation, the flower slowly compresses back in. So just like the lungs expand and compress, the Xia Dantian expands out its energy and compresses the energy back in. We'll get to that as we talk about our three major points of focus in our standing or seated Qigong-based meditation. So without further ado, I think I've hit all the highlights. Again, if you start to feel wonky, if you didn't grab a chair, you start to feel wonky, come out of it, find a chair, sit down, you should be fine, right? But careful, again, if you're not 100%, maybe just watch this today, your first time coming into it, and then come back to it later when you're feeling betterer. So everybody always starts standing with the hands on the belly. If you're seated, one of your two positions, right? You can also do the embrace the moon in a chair if you really, really want to. Oh, one more note on the eyes. I have had at least one, shall we say, pointed conversation with a fellow instructor about closing eyes during meditation. Oh no, you should never close your eyes in meditation. It happened when we were talking about an image-guided meditation where you have to close your eyes or the image will not happen. This is up to you. It's another option at Water Tiger School. You can close them if you want. If that helps you focus and bring the inner eye inside, then close them. If If you'd rather have them open, closing them and standing, all of a sudden you start to feel wonky, maybe opening them for you. Maybe while you're open and you start to feel wonky, you close them and that sort of wonkiness goes away. Do what's right for you, and that may change from day to day as well. Just a nice cleansing breath, not into any part of the meditation yet. 2 acupuncture points that become major focus for us here, the acupuncture point for the Xia Dantian, the acupuncture point for the Sheng Dantian, the upper field elixir. It's the third eye and other energy modalities. You bring the hands to the belly. Again, your choice, but not with the fingers interlocked. I'm going to breathe and relax. I'm not going to time this. We usually keep it to about 5 minutes. I don't want to rush any of my conversation. So, breathe and relax. Begin to focus on the acupuncture point for the Sheng Dantian, the upper field elixir. Again, the lower center of the forehead. The purpose of our focus there is sort of draw a curtain between us and those things that are clamoring the loudest for our attention. Horseshack and welcome back, Cotter. Those thoughts are like Horseshack in the classroom, jumping up and down. Oh, me, pick me, choose me. That initial focus sort of seeks to draw a curtain between us and those things, a little distance, shut a door, establish a neutral zone. So they can still be there. They can actually still be quite loud. We have that little buffer between us and them. So they're a little less prominent, a little less drawing of our attention. This is sort of what we refer to as the pre-meditation moment. We're not really into the meditation yet. It's preparatory. Once we get to that point that, they may quiet entirely, but that's not the goal. The goal here is to develop a sense, a feeling, and assurance that a calm, quiet mind is possible. We may not get there in this particular meditation, but that's the path of which we walk. Once we can establish that possibility, if not an initial quietness itself, the focus drops from the head to the belly, from the acupuncture point for the Sheng Dantian to the acupuncture point for the Xia Dantian, from head to belly. And now we're in the meat of the meditation. Now is the time, and any time thereafter, that if you feel, and I'm going to float the hands for a little while, and I'm going to move back to the more traditional position, because I don't want everybody to feel like they have to be in this position. You should feel the weight of your arms. Your arms are in structure, so you're not holding them up. Your structure is. I'm going to go ahead and float them back down. So again, you can stay there if you want. We have 3 basic checkpoints in our Qigong-based meditation. The first is body. Checking in. Regardless of standing or being seated, you should feel as if structure and gravity are forming a partnership together to be what holds us up more than our own muscular activation. So we're seeking to find that very thin line between just enough activation and not enough. In other words, the image we tend to use is if there were a mosquito in the room or a truck to drive by and vibrate the ceiling above me enough to knock off a piece of insulation, and it floats down and drops on my shoulder. If If I am truly utilizing just enough activation to stay upright, if I made no adjustment for that extra weight of that little bit of fluff, I would collapse onto the ground. Seeking to find that sense of being sown. No direct English translation, but basically a relaxed readiness, a dynamic relaxation, a surrendered resilience. Settling into the body and relaxing in the body allows us to move on to the breath. The second of our three has three subcategories, all of them and on its own. First, with the breath, is it should be deep, utilizing the diaphragm to carry the breath down deeper into the body cavity, the belly and the lower back, expanding and compressing more than the chest and the upper back. Ideally, both inhalation and exhalation through the nose, but any combination, nasal, oral, okay. Do not force the breath to be deep. Allow it to be deep. The breath should be relaxed. Forcing the breath creates tension in the breath pattern. Tension, activation creates sound. We want the breath to be smooth and quiet instead of coarse and loud. Now, granted, there are different medical issues, conditions that might contribute to an activation or tension within the airway. Something as simple as allergies. Other more advanced pulmonary issues. But if all other aspects of the breath are relaxed, even that sound will be lessened. The breath deep and relax. The third aspect of breath is the image breath. The image breath I described earlier, that sense of expansion from the belly happens on the physical exhalation, the compression, the folding back into the belly on the physical inhalation. You can imagine it as the flower, you can imagine it as a color, you can imagine it as the sun rising on the exhalation, setting on the inhalation. Breathing through the body, which is another possible image for you. Every cell. Breathing, every pore drawing in the breath and sending it back out. Breathing, relaxing, and releasing. The third of our three main checkpoints is the mind. Generally, what we hear is that we should empty the mind, but not in a traditional Western sense. If we view the mind as a bowl of water, we don't want to empty the water out. We want to allow it to clear and clarify. What the mind is empty of, in the meditation sense of empty, is empty of interacting with the thoughts that may rise. Going back to the bowl of water, if you think of thoughts as corks floating against the surface of the water of the mind, if you interact with them, it's like poking the cork in the water. It just creates more turbulence. So breathe, relax, and let those thoughts, let the flotsam and jetsam of our daily lives just either float away from our awareness or settle to the bottom of the bowl, so the water of the mind is crystalline clear, from its surface all the way to its depth. Again, not trying or working to stop the thoughts, Sometimes that's what the meditation is, just seeing the thoughts and letting them pass you by. Since it's not about emptying the mind in the Western sense, you can use different images. Perhaps just simply being with the breath and feeling not only the expansion and compression of the physical breath, but the expansion and compression, seeing that in your mind's eye, of the internal breath. Perhaps every inhalation draws all the stars in the heaven into your body. And on the exhalation, you place them all back. Perhaps it's as if you are standing underneath a waterfall and the water is warm and washes over and through you, washing away any thought or tension, any tightness or anxiety, getting caught up in the flow of the water over the falls. The sun overhead, its light, its warmth permeating body and mind, dissipating or drawing out any thought or tension, any tiredness, any ache or anxiety. Gentle breeze, blowing through like the water, not only over but through you, carrying away what we might call the dust of the world. Breathing, relaxing, and releasing. I'm going to allow for a few breaths with nothing but the quiet, the calm, with each of us, with our breaths, with ourselves. And bringing the consciousness back into the room. If you're seated, the hands are in your lap, you're done. If you're seated, allow the hands to float down, to rest on your legs, and you're done. If you're standing, embrace the moon position. The hands float down, left to the left, right to the right. If you're like me and your hands are on your Xia Dan Tian, they release and swing. Wrists are active, so the palms are floating down. You don't want to just drop the hands. It's sort of like taking a glass of water and tipping it over. Everything runs out. In a moment, we want to identify our two feet. When we want to be sure that we're going to move the left foot, the right foot stays grounded. It's as if the hands are resting on top of a beach ball filled with helium. They float up, out, away from the body, and as they do, you settle your weight into your right foot. As the hands draw in, that draws in the left foot through the air or across the floor. You press down, redivide the weight equally between the 2 feet, and the rebound pulls the hands back to the belly. And there you go. By the way, if you're doing a standing meditation and you find that you need to close, I urge you, I beg you, I implore you to do the closing before you walk away. That lets body, mind, and chi all know that, hey, this dude is done with this. This woman is done with this and is going to move on to the next thing. So there you go. A little, not really image guided, but a little Qigong-based from Water Tiger School's perspective, standing meditation. And I just want to reiterate that closing. Wherever the hands are, if they're here, they float down left to the left, right to right. If they're here, you allow them to release and swing out. And then it's the left foot that comes into the right. It can come in the air and sit down. It can slide across the floor, but notice that togetherness between the upper body and the lower body. The heel's still in the air at this point. because I want something to do as I press the hands down. And then I want something to do to bring the hands back to the abdomen. So as I press the heel down, I might rise up so I can sit back down into the body. As I press the hands down, I might sink down so then I can rise up, pulling the hands into the body. It's not like I'm here, I do this, I do that, and I do that. You want everything together. So there you go. A little bit of Water Tiger School's Qigong-based meditation. It's kind of a standard for both our studio and public programs. And just allows you, another tool in the toolbox, if you will, to help us stay focused on our path, whatever that path may be. It may not be with Tai Chi and Qigong, and that's okay. But it's good, and it's good for you. So, thanks. I hope you found this of use. And not sure, when we'll be back with original content. As I said at the top of this, it's kind of getting spread out these days because there's lots to do in the new abnormal. So as I always say at this time, I can't wait until this part of these videos is like somebody looks at it and goes, what the hell is he talking about? That was, that's all over now. Wear your mask. Mask up, people. All right? If you can, do as much as you can while still hanging out as much as you can at home. Venture out when you have to. Stay away from crowds if you can as well. That's one thing in the studio. One, our program's relatively small, so it's relatively easy to maintain physical distance. But yeah, we all stay 6 feet apart as we're playing. So there you go. Take care. Keep listening to the health experts and scientists on what we need to do to get ourselves to see the other end of this for everybody. Take care. You'll see me next time. Ta.